A couple of weeks ago, I was invited by Ubisoft to an exclusive digital event. Huge shout out to Ubisoft for the invitation, where I spent a solid 2.5 hours playing an early version of Anno 117 Pax Romana. And I'll say this right off the bat. Daggum impressed by what I played. I was immediately snagged by its mechanics, both old and new, and my only regret is that the event was so short. Hello everybody, this is Havoc, and today I'll be deep diving into my first impressions on Anno 117. From its setting in Roman history, to the initial hesitation about this just being a reskinned game, to seeing the integration of end-game Anno 1800 development, and of course all the new things in between, including the revolutionary 45-degree angle turn and what it means for the franchise. And just a heads up, this is an early build of the game, so everything you see in this video can and will be subject to change. Before we Pax Romana, just two quick things. First, if you are enjoying this video at any point, feel free to give it a like, sub to the channel, or comment down below for ye old engagement to put the video in front of the YouTube gods. Second, if you like what you see content-wise, do go ahead and give the game a wishlist on Steam to help its visibility to those who may not know about the Anno universe. With that out of the way, grab your toga and fasten your sandals as we first dive into the setting, the Pax Romana. One of the bigger themes of the Anno franchise, at least for the most part, has been a lack of the classical term for war. While, yes, you do fight your more aggressive opponents, and yes, you can build massive fleets in the previous games, etc., this isn't war like in the Total War series or in Paradox Grand Strategy games. And that makes an Anno game set in Roman history a wee bit tricky, considering that most of said history is bathed in wars and conquest as a means of expansion. Enter Pax Romana. And no, this isn't just a fancy SEO term that sounds super Roman-like. It's an actual part of Roman history, taking up of about 200 years of relative peace and quiet as the empire expanded and developed. And wouldn't you know it, but the year 117 AD is right smack in the middle of this 200-year Pax Romana, or Roman peace. Coincidence? Absolutely not. This makes for the perfect time period for Anno 117. It wasn't a conflict-free period by any definition, but neither was it riddled with civil wars and unrest, or massive barbarian invasions that we so often equate with large chunks of Roman history. This is a time where you can grow your cities with a degree of calm, where you can build up your trade networks across multiple islands and multiple maps, and where you can exert your influence through force if necessary. So you can imagine my initial disappointment when I booted the game and initially, keyword there, initially felt like I was playing a reskinned Anno 1800. But wait, there's more. I implore you to keep listening past this point, as it does indeed get better, but if you've ever played an Anno game, especially Anno 1800, then you know exactly how I felt. You place your initial building to unlock timber production, build your 1 or 2 timber buildings, then move to houses, placing your houses in the exact same way you did for your city 1700 years later, followed by food, unlocking clothing, islands have different resources that force you to expand. Everything felt exactly like Anno 1800. The user interface, the music, the people in your quests, the people in your city. It was quite literally like playing a modded version of the game with Roman assets. Which isn't a bad thing, don't get me wrong. The game feels familiar, so I can immediately figure most things out. It also looks absolutely stunning, as you'll see in some B-roll footage of my cities going as I speak. The houses blend brick tiles and stucco to create some great villa aesthetics. Production buildings take advantage of draping curtains to provide that open market we associate as quote-unquote Roman. I knew what to do for the most part, especially right off the bat. This helped me a ton considering I had such a short time to play. I understood the game and its basic mechanics, so if you're an Anno player, this feels right at home. You can see implementations of the latter part of Anno 1800's development cycle, from logistics and management to something as simple as copying entire sections of your city to paste elsewhere for quick and simple expansion. And then the new pieces came into focus, and they changed the game entirely, especially optional needs, attributes, and building buffs. In previous Anno games, the needs of your population were very straightforward. Your farmers need fish and clothing, with access to a marketplace and a tavern in order to maximize their benefits and also upgrade them. That system has changed entirely, replaced by optional needs. You now have options on just how you can fulfill the needs of your people. So instead of just fish and clothing, you can choose between sardines or porridge to fulfill that category, tunics or hats, a marketplace, or a tavern. This gives you some leniency in pursuits, and, especially for higher tier population, takes into considerations what resources your island may have and how you pursue them. That being said, each optional need provides specific boosts as they've done in Anno 1800. Taking the Libertas pops into account here, sardines provide a +1 population and +1 income, while porridge provides just +2 income. And while you may be wondering which is better to choose, you can min-max by providing both of them at the same time, in this case giving you +3 population and +1 income total per completely fulfilled household. Now, as your population hits higher tiers, as to be expected, you still have options, but the number of items needed for basic fulfillment will increase. Your plebeians will need the food options of the Libertas, and bread, and garum. But it's not just about population, happiness, and income anymore. There are several new attributes to consider. Attributes are nothing new in the Anno franchise, especially Anno 1800, where fulfilling the needs of your population provided your cities with happiness and income, preventing unrest and bankruptcy. You also had buildings like the fire station that prevented fires, or a hospital to combat disease in a very broad and non-tangible sense. In Anno 117, they are vastly expanded upon, now providing 8 different attributes that most buildings and fulfillment now contribute to: population, income, belief, knowledge, prestige, health, happiness, and fire safety. What was considered a bit more abstract, and to be honest, a bit basic, in Anno 1800, now has a much more concrete and definitive presence in your cities. Food fulfillment providing income, population, and happiness is to be expected, but now fire safety is an actual rating on your city, determining the possibility of fires. Health is an actual rating, determining the potential for disease. Belief from temples provides you with buffs depending on both the chosen patron god you worship and the population that follows them. Knowledge from your academic buildings determines the speed of research, and yes, there's research from the get-go now. Prestige, well, I never really sat down to figure that one out, but it's definitely there. Almost every single building in the game provides some form or combination of these 8 attributes. And while it may seem a lot to manage at once, I found the top bar menu to be incredibly helpful and the integration of these new attributes to be quite seamless, providing you with a depth of gameplay to figure out the logistics and layout of your city, especially considering that almost every building now has building buffs. Once again, building buffs are not exactly new. Fire stations buffed the fire safety in the area in Anno 1800, hospitals, health, etc., etc. In Anno 117, however, buildings such as the 2 mentioned now provide a fulfillment for your population, but even if it's not a need, buildings can still provide additional attributes to both the affected residents and the surrounding buildings in the form of a status effect. Take our previous optional needs for your Libertas. You've already provided them with their need for food with sardines. Providing porridge, therefore, isn't fulfilling a need, it's providing an additional attribute to your residents. Placing a Vigilus, or a fire station, reduces the overall fire safety rating in your city, but also provides a +2 fire safety buff to the buildings within its radius. You can also have debuffs in the same vein, as a bakery provides +2 income to all buildings in its radius, but comes at the cost of -2 fire safety debuff to said buildings, posing a potential fire risk, while at the very same time reducing your overall fire safety city rating. This new building buff system has some incredible implications to city layout, as you may want to keep certain production buildings far away from residences, or some rather close if you can counter their debuffs. Placement now becomes less about only fulfilling needs and more about the potential buffs you could gain from a building's radius. A note here that building buffs don't stack, as you'll notice by the lack of a green chevron when that building overlaps into another radius of the same type. So unfortunately, there's no infinite money spam from placing 100 bakeries and fire stations next to a residence. However, these buffs are a perfect example of Anno 117 evolving into new territory, and I love to see it. There are a lot of new additions I'd love to chat about, but for time's sake, I'll be making a dedicated video that focuses on most of the new things I discovered while playing, so it's a perfect time to subscribe so you can see it once it goes live. While all of this is great to see in terms of the evolution of the game, I just gotta speak on 45 degrees, the diagonal experience. Obviously, this is a big one. The Anno franchise is notorious, positively or not, for its grid formations, an unyieldingly blocky experience that at times can make for great looking cities, other times it's just a flat out pain. And at first, when I read that Anno 117 was implementing a diagonal road system, I couldn't shake the irony in introducing this mechanic into an empire that is renowned for its grid formations. I mean, how revolutionary could diagonals be, truly? Turns out, immensely. In terms of residential and city layout, simply being able to rotate every building into the 45 degree allows you to naturally spread your city throughout an island that maybe has a curve to it. Your placement of service buildings can actually go a little bit further when placing them at the intersection of a 45 degree road. It can even reduce the length of a road from a production building to a warehouse. The Anno franchise has never really had an organic city flow before, and with diagonal lines and placements of every building, you really start to see how well this works out. As mentioned, diagonals work for nearly everything in the game, providing natural seaside wharves that line up rather than stack, each jutting out awkwardly in front of the other. No more bizarre 90-degree turns to squeeze roads into a tight space. And for those pure aesthetic-minded players, it even extends into your decoration. Every decoration can be rotated into the diagonal stance, allowing for some pretty cool decorative setups with paved roads, trees, and signs. What started out as feeling very out of place and unnatural in a franchise that seemed unable to be flexible, it's turned into something that seems so simple, but has great positive implications across the board for the gameplay experience of a beloved franchise. It's not awkward. They've really been able to implement all of the strange elements you'd expect from diagonal lines and weird scenarios, and they've done it well. Not everything is absolutely glowing though, and I do have a couple of small complaints. These are relatively quick to go over, so I don't think I'm glossing over things as these seem like real issues. First, the UI UX experience. The UI design itself is fantastic. I can't complain too much about how it looks. Functionally though, I consistently struggled to know where things were construction-wise. It doesn't feel quite as intuitive as Anno 1800 is, to the point where I had to ask my demoist just where the decorations were because I thought I hadn't unlocked them yet. Turns out it's just a small button icon in the far left of the bottom UI bar. Continuing on, you now have your worker class categories on the right side of your bottom UI bar with a portrait, rather than Anno 1800's text block on the bottom. Selecting it expands the UI bar to show what you can build in that class, with core resource production buildings at the bottom, next to what I assume is a quick construction menu. I consistently struggled with it throughout my preview time, but perhaps it was due more to being a bit rusty, having not played Anno 1800 in a while, or perhaps there's definitely some improvement that can be had regarding the UX. Again, it's not terrible, just a bit unintuitive. The next big complaint is the intrusiveness of events going on in the world around you. The other players are constantly making remarks based on the fire safety, the health, and religious rating in your towns. Mr. Playboy was particularly obtrusive, and I just wanted to shut him up and tell him to focus on his own island rather than constantly look at my own. Anno 1800 sort of struggled with this, but I don't recall being so annoyed at the NPCs and world events and missions as I was with this preview. So a debuff to the comments from other players would be a welcome change if there's something that can be done about it. Lastly, a lack of notifications regarding off-island events. For instance, I sent my ship off to do a mission and go to another port. Of course, I'm distracted by building my city and having a blast doing it, and I completely forgot about my ship, and it just sat there at the port of destination for about 15 minutes before I remembered. Considering that there are now several more aspects of your city to keep in check at any given time, it'd be great to implement some event reminders or notifications, specifically with regards to missions you've taken on. It would reduce some frustration and free up just a tiny bit of stress, knowing that I would be pinged in these areas rather than realize 15 minutes later that I forgot I was even doing a mission. And with all that being said, very quickly, what are my thoughts on the preview? Overall, I had a really great experience with the game, despite there being a good deal of learning to do in order to take on all the new elements being implemented. Having multiple options to fulfillment allows you to be sustainable right off the bat, but also pursue more options for those min-max benefits. New building buffs and attributes provide more depth and strategic city planning than in previous games, which is always going to be a positive. Diagonal construction affects city layouts dramatically in a positive light as well. And even though there were some rough spots, this is still an early build, and there's plenty of time to address any concerns before launch, of which we still have no release date. But still, I'm cautiously optimistic based on the 2.5 hours of gameplay I experienced, and I'm already hungry to play again. Thank you so much for checking out this deep dive first impressions on Anno 117 Pax Romana. I hope it was very insightful for you, and I hope you enjoyed seeing some actual gameplay. A big shout out to Ubisoft for the invitation to play, and if you enjoyed the video, help the channel out by giving it a like, subbing, and let me know what you're most excited about in the comment section below. There are a couple more videos I plan on making for my time playing, so definitely stick around. Thanks again, this is Havoc, and I will see you in the next video.